There's a specific kind of silence that happens the moment someone realizes their money is doing more work than they are. Not in a motivational poster kind of way, in a literal, calculable, almost uncomfortable way. You're sitting somewhere, ordinary, maybe at your kitchen table on a Tuesday morning, coffee going cold beside you, and you're staring at a number on a screen. And for the first time, the number moved more in a single month than your entire paycheck did. Nobody warned you that moment would feel strange. Nobody told you it would arrive quietly, without ceremony, on a completely forgettable Tuesday. My name is Daniel, and what I want to talk about today is the threshold most people never reach, not because they can't, but because they never understood what was actually waiting on the other side of it. Here's the thing about money that nobody explains in a way that actually lands. It doesn't grow in the way we instinctively imagine. We tend to think of growth as something linear. You put in effort, you get out a proportional result. That's how everything else in life works. You work more hours, you earn more money. You practice more, you get better. We're trained from childhood to expect the world to respond to our inputs in a straight line. But compounding doesn't respect that instinct at all. It works on a curve that stays almost perfectly flat for years, then bends so sharply upward that it looks like a mistake. And the cruel irony is that the flat part is precisely where most people give up, convinced the whole thing is broken, when in reality, it's working exactly as it should. Think about what it actually feels like to build savings in America right now. The median household income sits around $80,000 before taxes. After rent, which in most mid-sized cities has climbed past $1,500 a month just for a one-bedroom, after groceries, after the car payment, after the 6 or 7 subscriptions you forgot you signed up for but would feel mildly panicked about canceling, you might have $600 a month left over to invest, maybe $800 if you're disciplined and a little lucky. At $700 a month going into a broad index fund earning an average of 7% annually, your first year of investing produces roughly $294 in market growth. Not $294 per month, $294 total for the year. You sacrificed dinners out, skipped the concert, told yourself you were being responsible, and the market handed you back the cost of a nice dinner and a movie ticket. That's it. That's the famous power of compound interest in year one. And here's where something psychologically strange happens, because that number, $294, doesn't feel like a beginning. It feels like proof that the whole idea was oversold. Your brain, which is very good at pattern recognition and very bad at exponential math, looks at $294 in year one and extrapolates a lifetime of $294 years. It assumes the curve stays flat forever. It doesn't trust what it can't yet see. And so somewhere around year 2 or 3, when the account has maybe $18,000 in it and the market's annual contribution is still embarrassingly small compared to your own deposits, a quiet voice starts suggesting maybe you'd be better off doing something else with that money. A down payment on a used car, a home renovation, something you can actually touch. What that voice never tells you is the price of listening to it. Let's say you've been contributing for 3 years and you've built up $25,000. You pull it out. In the moment, that feels like a rational decision. You needed the money, the growth was slow anyway, you'll start again later. But here's what that $25,000 was actually carrying. Left alone at 7% annual growth, it doubles roughly every 10 years. By retirement age, that $25,000 becomes over $200,000 without a single additional dollar contributed. When you withdrew it at 30, you didn't spend $25,000. You spent $200,000 of future financial security and replaced it with something that immediately started depreciating the moment you drove it off the lot. This is the hidden arithmetic of impatience, and it's everywhere once you start looking. It shows up in the way we think about raises. Most Americans, when they get a meaningful salary increase, absorb the entire thing into their lifestyle within about 6 months. The apartment gets nicer, the car gets newer, the restaurant tab gets slightly less scrutinized. Behavioral economists have a clinical name for this, lifestyle inflation. But that name doesn't quite capture how subtle and seductive the process is. It doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like finally catching up to where you were supposed to be all along. And by the time the credit bill reflects the new normal, the raise has already been spent before it was ever invested. The financial gap between the person who invests their raise and the person who upgrades their lifestyle with it is not a few $1,000s over a decade. It compounds into the difference between retiring comfortably and working until your body makes the decision for you. Now, if you're finding this valuable and you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. I put out videos like this every week, and the next one might be the one that actually changes something for you. Back to the number. The reason $100,000 matters as a milestone isn't arbitrary. It's not because 6 figures sounds impressive at a dinner party. It's because of what happens to the relationship between your contributions and your returns at that level. If you're investing $700 a month, $7,200 a year, and your portfolio is sitting at $20,000 earning 7%, the market is adding roughly $1,400 to your account annually. You're still doing most of the work. You're the engine. But once that portfolio crosses $120,000, at 7%, a $120,000 portfolio generates about $8,400 on its own, exactly what you're contributing. The market is now matching your effort dollar for dollar, and every dollar you add from that point forward increases the base that the percentage gets applied to, which means the market's contribution grows faster than yours from here on out. You've crossed from one side of the math to the other, and the view is completely different. What makes this genuinely strange to sit with is that nothing about your behavior changed. You didn't become smarter, you didn't find better investments, you didn't get a life-changing promotion. The only thing that changed is that you stayed. You kept contributing during the years when it felt pointless, when the account barely moved, when every financial headline was designed to make you anxious, when your friends were buying things you told yourself you couldn't afford. You stayed, and eventually the math caught up with you in the best possible way. The $100,000 threshold isn't the finish line. It's the point where the race runs itself. There's one more thing worth being honest about, and it's something the optimistic version of this conversation tends to skip. Reaching $100,000 in savings is genuinely hard in today's economy, and pretending otherwise would be doing you a disservice. The personal savings rate in the United States has been hovering around 3 to 4% for years. When wages grow at one pace and rent, healthcare, and groceries grow at another, the gap between income and the ability to save isn't a discipline problem, it's a structural one. If you're behind, it doesn't mean you made the wrong choices. It might mean you were dealt a harder hand and the stakes table is higher than they should be. The math still works for you. It just demands more creativity about where the contributions come from. A side income, a deliberate expense audit, a temporary lifestyle compression that isn't meant to be permanent, just long enough to cross the line. And crossing the line changes things in a way that's hard to describe until it happens. Because once you're on the other side of $100,000, time starts to feel like an ally instead of a pressure. The doubling periods become something you can almost feel. 100,000 becomes 200, 200 becomes 4. The same rule of thumb, divide 72 by your expected return to get your doubling time, means at 7%, your money doubles roughly every decade. 3 decades of that, starting from $100,000, gets you past $800,000 without a single additional contribution. Not because of anything clever you did, because you got to $100,000 and then just left it alone and let time do what time does when you give it compounding to work with. Warren Buffett, who has had a few things to say about money over the years, made most of his wealth after the age of 65. Not because he became a better investor late in life, because he had enough zeros behind the number that the percentage returns became staggering in absolute terms. The strategy was ordinary, the patience was extraordinary. And patience, unlike talent or luck or connections, is something anyone can choose. It's just uncomfortable in a way that our culture isn't particularly good at rewarding. We celebrate the quick win. We share the overnight success. We don't make videos about the person who quietly contributed for 7 years while everyone around them spent freely, because that story doesn't have a dramatic turning point. Until suddenly, on a forgettable Tuesday morning with a cold cup of coffee, it very much does. If this landed for you, subscribe before you go. It genuinely helps, and there's more where this came from. But before you click away, I want to ask you something real. What's actually standing between you and that first $100,000 right now? Is it income? Is it discipline? Or is it something else entirely? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every one of them, and sometimes the most honest answers down there are more useful than anything I could say up here.